Hey guys, welcome back to Walkman Comics, and I know last week I said that every video for the next few weeks was just going to be about Infinity War. Pewdiepie just made a video about Marvel movies, and he said some pretty interesting things, so I thought I might make a response video to that. I don't really have much more to say, so I might just jump straight into it, but before it begins, I just wanted to say that I'm not really hating on PewDiePie. I do kind of like some of his videos. I watch his videos. He's really cool. He's a smart guy, so yeah, I'm not really gonna be against any of that, but yeah, and I don't disagree with all of the things that he said, but I just thought I might make a response video talking about some of the things that I do slightly disagree with. And it's also, this isn't a video about why you have to like Marvel movies or why it's really wrong to not like them as well. That's just, that would be pretty stupid for me to say that it's wrong for you to not have your own opinion. That's just kind of weird. I don't really get why some people think that, so yeah, that's not what this is about.
First argument was oversaturation. I don't know how anyone can really defend this point, but I'll go through it anyway. We have Iron Man, you have the Hulk, Iron Man again, Thor, Captain America, Avengers.
He goes on to list every single MCU movie that there has been, and he's basically saying that there's just way too many of them and they're trying to make lots of money out of it or something, and I actually agree with this point. I think they just released a few too many, and it does get quite annoying that you have to watch all of them to really understand what's going on in, say, most recently Infinity War, but they did get a whole lot better in last year in 2017, but the previous ones, I just can't really be bothered to watch every single one of them, so yeah, this is a good point. He does have a point here.
Now don't get me wrong, I really liked superhero movies growing up. Spider-Man, for example, I thought was so cool to see a superhero movie that I recognized on the big screen for the very first time. It wasn't something I was familiar with before, and I just thought that concept was really, really cool. But then once you watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you sort of get that they're all the same movie, packaged differently. At the end of the day, all these films can be summarized as superhero has superpowers, supervillain has superpowers, superhero wants peace, supervillain wants destruction. They fight, and superhero wins. Hooray!
That's not wrong. After watching these movies, or a bunch of these movies, you can kind of tell that it does follow that sort of formula, but if you look at Ant-Man, that really does follow that formula. It's with a good guy who goes and fights a bad guy who's a bit like him, and then he wins at the end. That really does follow that concept, but what Marvel's been doing recently, from the start of last year, is going about this whole sort of format a lot differently, and it is really cool to see how it sort of does that, and it will start to become more and more unique as it goes along. And if you look at Logan, that movie does do that thing a whole lot differently than the sort of default superhero movie, so I guess it is starting to become a little bit different and more interesting.
I won't get too much into every single aspect, but one thing that I personally don't enjoy about this Marvel movie specifically is that they rely so heavily on special effects. It's like I'm watching an animated film with nothing really artistically interesting or impressive about it. As opposed to Dark Knight, for example, where you watch this scene and you're like, whoa, they actually did flip a giant truck in the middle of New York City. That's really cool. There's something interesting and admirable about that.
With The Dark Knight, there is something a little bit differently to the way that Marvel does things, because with that, it's more sort of Batman just in the streets and stuff, and it doesn't really require much stuff where the camera is like crazy panning around to different places in, say, the Avengers, where they're fighting in the city and like There's a bunch of different like fight scenes. Like, keep in mind there is like 6 different characters in there that are in that same fight scene, and they're like up in the sky. Like, you can actually see like Hulk is like punching a Chitauri into the building, and that does actually require that kind of special effects. But with Dark Knight, it doesn't really need it, you know what I mean? Because like with that, it's on a sort of a larger scale where it does require that kind of special effects. And if they didn't need that, it would be like way more difficult to pull off, with like the camera sort of somehow being held high up in the air, and like they wouldn't be able to pull off that many really cool things where the camera is panning around and stuff. And it's the special effects in that make it actually a whole lot better, you know. And without that, it would be a whole lot weirder. I mean, not weirder, like it wouldn't sort of look as amazing. And if it needs special effects to look amazing, then it kind of, in a sense, is worth getting rid of that feeling where they actually flipped a truck to create that really cool scene, if you know what I mean.
People worship Stan Lee like he's some sort of godlike creature, and which gives me to my next point, which is the cult surrounding the Marvel movies. It's freaky. It's weird.
I don't really think that there is anyone who thinks that Stan Lee is literally a god, first of all, because he isn't. And maybe there is like 1 person or 2 people that actually think that, but there are always going to be weird people. But mainly people don't really think that he's a god, because he isn't. But the reason that they like him so much is because he's done some pretty good things. He's made some great comics. He's had some pretty cool cameos in the Marvel movies and stuff like that, and he's just a bit of an icon, you know, and that's why people think he's really cool, you know.
It's a guy dressed in a suit. You're screaming at a guy dressed in a suit.
The reason that people find this so exciting and so cool is because it's Tom Hiddleston the actor, not because it's some guy wearing a Loki costume. Like, they could get some random person who made a Loki costume and put him on the stage, and people would just be like, oh, whatever, that's just some random guy wearing a costume. But it's because it's the actor that makes it so exciting, you know. It's just like, say, if you got someone who, like, say a famous musician, like, people are pretty big fans of, like, music people, obviously, like, people would probably have the same reaction to that. It's because it's the actor, like someone famous, that people find it so cool and like so exciting, you know. And that's basically the reason why. It's not because it's a guy dressed in a suit, you know. Also, another thing that I wanted to point out is PewDiePie used the clip that makes it look most like a cult, because it has Tom Hiddleston like raising his arms up, making it look like the people are worshipping him, you know. And I don't blame him for using that clip, you know, because when you want to get your point across, you want to use something that'll convince people the most. I just thought I might point that out.
We need to stop fetishizing the idea of idolizing superheroes. I genuinely think it's damaging, and I said this because they're not real. They have superpowers, right? It's not achievable to have superpowers. You're idolizing something that's impossible. You're idolizing a personal trait that just has been given to them most of the times for free. What's so admirable about idolizing a superhero? What is the positive message? The fact that they want to do something good? Is that what's so great about them? That they're just striving to make the world a better place? Oh, whoopity-doo, who doesn't?
I think what makes these characters so widely liked by the audience is that the fact that you don't see it every day, and this is why just fiction as a whole is just a great thing, because it includes stories that don't happen every day. That's why they're interesting and why people want to watch it or read it or listen to it or whatever. Like, it's something that doesn't happen every day, and especially with superhero stories like this, like, there are things that can't happen every day. Like, say, look at look at Thor. Like, he's just a god who comes down to earth or something. Like, that that's like impossible, and that's why it's so interesting to just take a look at how it would turn out if it was in real life. And that's basically why people enjoy that kind of story so much.
What about a superhero movie that tackles the idea of what really is good and what really is evil?
Oh wait, they already did that, and it sure as hell wasn't Marvel. Sure as hell wasn't Marvel. Sure as hell wasn't Marvel.
Congrats to the entire Black Panther team. Because of you, young people will finally see superheroes that look like them on the big screen. Why not teach kids that their own morals and values comes from themselves and not from their skin? Instead of, oh, you look like this person, so you can be like this because you have the same complexion of skin.
I agree with this. That is a pretty ridiculous thing to think that, oh, you look like this person, so you can only look up to them, or that kind of thing, because, like, the way that you look does not define who you are, because that's a completely different thing. Like, you could be a terrible person and look like this, or look like something else. Like, that doesn't really define who you are. But the reason that Black Panther is so good has nothing to do with, oh, there are black people in that, so it's good for black kids to watch or whatever. The reason why it's so good is because of the culture that's in it, and like all the culture that's behind it. That's why, because like culture is such an amazing thing, or like such a great thing that kids like that want to watch, or adults, or anyone who wants to watch that, because it doesn't really have anything to do with oh, you have this kind of complexion of skin, you know. It's the culture that matters, because that's a way more personal thing.
Last but not least, in Infinity War, apparently a big deal of the movie is that a lot of superheroes die. I'm not going to spoil which ones or anything like that, but let's just entertain the idea that, let's say, Iron Man dies in Infinity War. Do you actually, and people are treating this like this is a really big deal, but do you actually think they're gonna just then stop making Iron Man movies? Do you think that franchise is just somehow completely gone? They're gonna be prequels, they're gonna be different iterations, different actors. They're still making Spider-Man movies. And that's sort of the point. As long as they keep making money, it's not gonna stop. And to me, personally, there's something very unappealing about that. It sort of lacks any form of artistic integrity.
Well, the money is a part of the reason why they do it, but I'm sure it's not the main reason. Like, they have actors that are working on this, and some of them either just really enjoy what they're doing, or they're like big fans of the comics. And that's the same with the directors. They really care about the story and that kind of thing. It's not just about the money. And you can also see this with Pewdiepie, like this kind of stuff that he's doing. He's getting paid for doing YouTube, you know, like. And he makes lots of money. Like, he's not going to want to throw it all away by like stop doing what he's doing. That's why they're gonna keep on making that kind of movie. And also, like, it's not the main thing, you know. Like, that's basically like what anyone would do if they had that kind of money from making that kind of thing, you know. Like, you're going to want to keep that money. It's just the way that things work, you know. Like, it's not really a bad thing unless you're like just doing it for the money and you don't even care. You're just trying to just make money off of it because you're greedy. Like, that's not the main reason, and it's also not a bad thing anyway. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in terms of responding to what PewDiePie was talking about. Yeah, if there's anything in the video that like I didn't put in, it's either because I already agree with that thing that he's saying, or it's just him like extending on like what he's previously talking about, and there's no point in actually putting it in the video. And if I did put it in this video, that would basically just be just using his video for views, you know. I don't really want to do that. I want to make this more of like what I think. Like, that's the most of what this is, you know. Like, not just copying what he's doing, you know. But another thing that he said at the end is that it's like, it's just too much, and like no one really cares about it in the future. Like, I think it's improving in the future. Like, it's gonna get a whole lot better, and that's why like the hype is like being built up a whole lot more, you know. another thing that he said is just like, it doesn't really matter if you like that kind of movie anyway. Like, he's not going to criticize you if you like that kind of thing. You know, stuff that it doesn't really take much of an IQ to really understand. You know, just stuff like that. But anyway, this has just been a little response video to that. I just thought I might be able to. I thought I just might respond to this because as I was just originally watching the video, I could think of a few answers to some of the questions that he was saying, so I just thought I might want to put them out there. But anyway, that's just the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.